What celebrity were you most surprised to find out was a jerk? Interviewed Zachary Quinto once. I could tell he was very talented and he would be going very far with his career in a more thespian-like manner. He wasn't a terrible person, but he was unsurprisingly, how do I put this? Well conceited. Obviously he can back it up, he's very talented, but, come on, it's still just acting. If anyone loves Chris Pine, he is absolutely charming in real life, knows how to address fans and press. A total sweetheart. But the biggest sweetheart of them all is Elijah Wood. What a great actor to interview, humble, kind, sensitive, and very very sweet-natured. My dad worked as a chef in various restaurants over the years and got to meet quite a few celebrities that way. The one that always stuck out to me was when he told me he got to serve dinner to Richard Dreyfuss. I'd always liked his movies and brand of humor. To me, he seemed like a nice guy. My dad told me he was incredibly rude and entitled, demanding that the staff not speak to him at all. They comped his meal as a courtesy but never received a compliment or thank you. Like, dude, next time, just go through a drive-thru if you don't want to interact with people. Bill Nye was a huge fan growing up. My brother works for NASA at Goddard in Maryland, and Mr. Nye has been a guest speaker for a number of events. The dude is apparently, according to my brother and his colleagues, a total jerk and gets a little creepy with the ladies. Anytime I've shared this, I get a fair amount of people disbelieving or say it's probably a misunderstanding. Look into it for yourself and I'm sure you'll find many anecdotes of him being an ass. Not an asshole like what you would expect, but Paris Hilton is apparently an absolute sweetheart. A good friend of mine who used to work in the fashion industry and has met her on more than a few occasions said that she is consistently one of the nicest celebrities he has ever met. He is a nobody in the industry, but she recognized him the second time she saw him and walked over and continued their conversation where they left off 6 months prior. Rolf Harris, a jerk, would be putting what he did mildly, but he was beloved in a sweet eccentric uncle way without giving off a false vibe like some other nice guy celebs. When a few older celebrities in Britain got accused of historic sex crimes, a lot of them were not considered that surprising. But Rolf was the person people felt a genuine sense of shock towards. It felt like a betrayal. Many years ago I'd volunteered for a charity. We had an event where Jim Carrey was a keynote speaker and guest. This was shortly after Mask was released. When Jim Carrey showed up, he was a cock to everyone. When the event started, we expected him to still be a cock. Nope, it's like he flipped a switch and became Jim Carrey and wowed the audience. Walked off stage and was a cock again. Hate to disappoint, but any celebrity I've met has been so nice. Joe Rogan, way before the podcast days, treated me like an old friend. Mandy Moore, absolute sweetheart. Georges St. Pierre was great but was also a friend of a friend. Any other athlete I've come across has been at least nice or cordial. I'd forgot about notorious asshole Dave Mustaine, who was also cool to me. She's not a huge celebrity, I don't know how liked she is in the country music circuit, but Cassidy Pope's band opened for one of my friends a little over a decade ago. She was saying some pretty terrible things about fans after the show, and I called her out on it. Mind you, a lot of us were assholes in our early 20s, so she might be different now, though. Ellen DeGeneres. I genuinely was so shocked because her show was built on a platform of being kind. She literally ended her episodes by saying be a kind to one another. For me that was the turning point in realizing that celebrities are people not to be admired but simply to be viewed as people who just happen to be popular, whether they are kind or mean. I went to a Blink-182 concert and no doubt was one of the opening bands. Now it could have just been band problems or bad day, but Gwen Stefani was so rude to the crowd. You could tell she didn't want to be there, always had a sneering face, and I didn't see her smile except like a fake smile before the first song. I got into an internet argument with John DiMaggio, voice of Bender, when I was like 14 years old. This was over email using my Hotbot account at the time just to date myself, sometime before Futurama premiered. To be fair, I'm not sure if he was a jerk or I was. Wish I still had those emails. Darman, bro built his whole career by making videos on kindness, helping others, compassion, empathy, etc. Turns out he was an awful boss and didn't even pay his employees a wage they could live off of despite having millions of views on his YouTube channel. Honestly, when someone gets to the point where they're surrounded by groupies and get recognized literally anywhere, I'm surprised any of them are nice. I know the 50th time someone interrupted my dinner with friends while out, I'd probably get a bit pissy myself. Finding out Ricky Gervais is a dick curl was extremely disappointing. I work in film, and wanted to work with him so badly that I took a huge pay cut to work on his movie special correspondence, and he was an absolute terror on set. Longest 2 months of my career. Will Smith. Loved him as a kid and was one of my favorite actors since The Fresh Prince and then the movies up to Pursuit of Happiness. Then all that cringe family drama and then him smacking Chris Rock was a deal breaker for me, and I no longer like him. It seems like Julia Roberts is not really that nice when not in front of a camera. I grew up watching her movies since my mom and Ann are big fans, and I've always thought she was a sweet, amazing, beautiful lady. Turns out she's really not. Adam Baldwin I always generally enjoyed his work in movies and loved Jane and Firefly. Then I ran into Baldwin on Twitter many years ago and saw what he's like. Joss Whedon goes in the same category, but for different reasons. Steve Martin started out as a promising young, black inventor with great ideas about eyeglasses. Eventually let all the wealth get to his head and wound up broke again after his glasses left customers cross-eyed. What a shame. Maybe not jerk per se, but I was pretty floored hearing Danny Trejo, who went to prison for armed robbery and witnessed murders by drug dealers, say that the one guy he wouldn't fuck with Cusack. I don't work in show business, but I belong to an FB group comprised mostly of people who work on movie TV sets, and while they never got into detail, many of them said Anna Kendrick was very unlikable IRL. Keanu Reeves. These Girl Scouts were selling cookies and he bought the entire wagon. After that he had the nerve to tip them $1,000 just to make sure his neighbors got cookies as well. What a dick. Jonah Hill. Really, so far only evidence he's a jerk, worse actually, to his girlfriends, but I met him and he was nothing but nice. Had a good time partying with him at a friend's birthday. Thought you said what celebrity were you most surprised to find out that people jerked off to Earl? I had to reread the post because there's no way that would be an actual question. Morris Dees, the founder of the Poverty Law Center, whom I had admired for years. Then he was fired, allegedly for sexual harassment and his treatment of minority staff. Too much of this thread as well. I didn't actually meet them, but I heard so, unless someone is speaking from first-hand personal experience, the point should be moot. Jim Carrey. That video of them kissing Alicia Silverstone on camera and how uncomfortable she looked was actually jarring, as I've always had a high opinion of him. Is a BuzzFeed writer posting these questions? Because this is like the third "Which Celebrity's a Dick" article I've seen in the past 24 hours on this subreddit. Ashley Judd is the single worst celeb I've ever met. I support her with her Me Too accusations, as no one deserves that, but she was a horrible person to meet. Anna Kendrick. She seemed nice at first and kind of quiet. Then as the production went on, realized she was a huge diva that treated people kind of shitty. In an interview with a showrunner who worked on The Tonight Show for over 20 years, they asked him who was the meanest celebrity ever on Billy Crystal. Beyoncé. I still like to believe that she's nice and she seems like she is, but the stories I heard from people who encountered her and Jay-Z. William Shatner. He's unpleasant. Frequents my hometown in KY because he owns a horse farm. He tells people to go away and leave him alone. Jerry Lewis. Came into my store once and was a complete jackass. You know who was amazingly nice to me? Martin Landau, a very nice man. Much of this thread is hearsay, rumors, and urban legend. Some of it is well documented. I always appreciate the first-hand accounts. Rachel Ray. She seems pretty outgoing and friendly, but I've read on several different platforms that she's in a hole. It's a shame. Gary Berghoff. Better known as Corporal Radar from MASH. Apparently he is not as much of a teddy bear as one would expect. Lil Romeo, dude was a total fucking prick. However, his father Master P was cool as shit. Met them at a parade during Mardi Gras. At this point I'm more surprised to find celebs that aren't jerks. Earl. Thankfully none I've had the honor to meet were jerks. Bill Nye the Science Guy visited our PBS station around the early 00s. He was pretty entitled, condescending, dismissive. Being surprised by a celebrity being a jerk is like being surprised you got shocked when you put a fork in a power outlet. I lived in Oklahoma when Twister was filmed. Locals who worked dealt with Helen Hunt, referred to her as Helen Cunt. Kenny G. At a meet and greet and autograph signing, he whispered, "Watch the black people they steal." Bill Murray. It was a shock and very sad to find out what a colossal asshole he is in real life. Ellen seemed so cool when I was a teenager with gay friends. Turns out she's a fucking monster. Jesus. Came walking up to my boat, trauma dumped on me, then skipped away as a storm rolled in. Surprised no one has mentioned Bill Murray. Then again, maybe it's not that much of a surprise. You know, with Hitler, the more I learn about that guy the more I don't care for him. Ellen DeGeneres. It just really sucks that she's such a hypocritical bitch. Bruce Willis. Not super surprised I suppose, but really disappointed. I guess Ellen switched from sweet on camera to sour in reality, smiley face. I've heard Jason Bateman is a dick and that makes me really upset. Jared Leto, I've read all the stories and the guy is just awful. Bill Cosby? I've seen a bit of this on Film McGraw too.